The most important part of your book, the one that is going to hook your reader and get them interested enough to to actually finish your book, is going to be in the first few pages. In retrospect, it wasn't one of my better wagers. A game of darts can be a big deal if you bet your last penny on it, and your kids are hungry, and all you've got to sell is a cursed ring that no one wants except the guy you stole it from. You intrigued? So was I. That is the first couple lines of the book Darts by Benjamin K. Hewitt. And they are quite possibly the most important part of any book, really, in any form of entertainment, including this one. I mean, I tried to hook you in this video by telling you what the most important part of your book is going to be. I tried to evoke a question in your mind and make you interested to know what the hell am I actually talking about? You see it across all mediums, any medium that wants your attention, any medium that wants you to keep reading or keep watching. It's pretty simple and straightforward. A hook is often going to evoke some sort of question in the reader's mind, while simultaneously pulling them directly into the story pretty much immediately. Get them into it, get them involved in the story. It is the reason why you don't start a book with a whole heap of info dumping or describing how a tree looks. Or if you do, you may struggle a little bit. In novel writing, this is called the narrative hook, and it simply refers to the literary technique used to hook your reader's attention, but it doesn't simply mean the first few words or sentence. It could even be the first few pages of a novel. But ideally, you're going to be hooking your reader quickly. I think the best way that we can learn about hooks is to actually see some good examples, like the very first one from Darts. Let's go over a couple different hooks from some very famous novels, and we'll get into a little bit of what they're doing. And while we go over these, consider what emotions are they evoking in you? What emotions, thoughts, feelings are you getting? Even pause the video after the hook and just take a moment and think about it. Like, what was that? What did I feel about that? In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. Consider this specifically in a non-Tolkien drenched universe. That's pretty damn hard actually to consider. So let's change the word here. Let's change the most well-known Tolkien word. In a hole in the ground, there lived a Tankerton. Immediately, you may be sitting there asking yourself, what the fuck is a Tankerton? And why is it living in a hole? But Tolkien doesn't stop at this first line with the hook. This is not the entirety of Tolkien's hook. It goes more. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole, filled with the ends of worms and oozy smell, nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole, with nothing in it to sit down on or to eat. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. Shit, I mean a Tankerton hole. But anyway, you're getting the point here. Tolkien is not only making you curious, but he's also creating an image in your mind. When you first hear hole, you probably thought of exactly what he explained, something dirty and gross. He quickly tells you that your initial suspicion is wrong, evoking further interest. What do you mean it's not a foul, stinking hole? It's a comfortable one? What's a comfortable hole? What would that look like? What is a Tankerton? Who would live in a hole? And does it have a duvet? Really, all this is doing is it's making you interested enough to keep reading, to keep learning more about Tolkien's world and what he has to offer in this book. It's enough to get you to turn the page or to read the next paragraph. It's what a hook is. It's essentially just not sending the reader running to the hills. Now, for the second example, we're going somewhere vastly different. To a book that is a lot of meaning to me, but is very, very different when it comes to its hook than what we get with The Hobbit Hole, James Clavell's Shogun. The gale tore at him, and he felt its bite deep within, and he knew that if they did not make landfall in 3 days, they would all be dead. Too many deaths on this voyage, he thought. I'm the pilot major of a dead fleet. The stakes of this are clear immediately. Blackthorn, the speaker, is facing a very dire circumstance. A sudden or immediate death is right on the next wave. If it were a movie, you are immediately thrown into this sprawling action scene, kind of like almost complete opposite of what we got with The Hobbit. Instead of just being tasked with, here's this question of, what is going on? What is this? And just evoking general curiosity, this is getting your blood pumping. It's making you wonder, is he going to die? What happened? Why is he on this voyage? You want to know, and that's why how you know that it's a good hook. It's making you curious, but in this instance, it's also building up tension from the very first words. In both of these examples, it's kind of been a very quick hook. It's been something that just sets almost immediately. But I did say in the outset that it doesn't have to be like the first sentence or even the first couple lines. It can be longer than that. It just so happens that a very good example of that is another best-selling novel from Sarah J. Maas, A Court of Thorns and Roses. And in this one, we get something a little bit in between. The forest had become a labyrinth of snow and ice. I'd been monitoring the parameters of the thicket for an hour, and my vantage point in the crook of a tree branch had turned useless. The gushing wind blew thick flurries to sweep away my tracks, but buried along with them any signs of the potential quarry. Hunger had brought me farther from home than I usually risked, but winter was the hard time. The animals had pulled in, going deeper into the woods than I could follow, leaving me to pick off stragglers, one by one, praying they'd last until spring. They hadn't. In this example, the hook for me is actually coming at the very end. Very powerful words that by themselves have no power. But when the way it was set up with everything leading up to it, they hadn't. It really just evokes this feeling of dread, this urgency, the same kind of feeling that was being evoked by Shogun, this feeling of urgency and dire straits that really just sets you into, God, there's shit happening right now. But then at the same time, there's using a little bit of the curiosity factor of The Hobbit. Who is this person that is talking? What is it that they're trying to do? Why is it that they have to hunt? And what is it that they fear? What is this thing that makes them wish that things wouldn't go further? Why can't they go deeper into the woods in chase of their quarry if it's so desperate? What's in there? Maybe it's a Tankerton. It's probably not a Tankerton. Now, of course, the hook alone is not going to be enough. It just so happens to be the first thing that people are going to be reading once they open your book. Now, when you're browsing, just think about like when you're browsing through books, you're going to do a couple of things. You're going to look at the cover. You're gonna read the back most likely to kind of get an idea of what it is, and then you're gonna flip it open. You're gonna flip it open to the first couple pages, and you'll give it a read, and you'll just see, is this catching my interest at all? And once it has, you need to follow it up with strong writing. You need to follow it up with a story that is deep and compelling and hits all the narrative beats well. But the hook is there to kind of give you a little bit of leeway, because with any story, you're gonna have rises and falls. It's not all gonna be fun and interesting and exciting. There's a lot of setup. Now, I'm not saying that have a great hook and then you're good to go and you can just go out there and have like an absolute shit info dump on page 3, but it does give you some leeway once you build up that interest of the reader to kind of build your story, to build tension, to build towards that payoff, because you have them interested in the first place. And this actually may be one of the plus sides or downsides of being self-published, because while I published my first book, Rise, in 2018, I actually went back this past year and changed my first line. And I did it because I felt like what I have learned over the years has made for a more powerful hook. And I'm actually curious to see what you think. Did I improve on this hook or did I make it worse? Be honest in the comments down below. But this is the first intro that I had to my book. And then we'll go into what I changed. You can see if it actually hooked it better. A parade of the wasted and forgotten trudged to the middle of Eastport. shuffling down cobbled streets toward the outskirts of the city. Damien Flynn shuffled along with the rest of the doomed, his unkempt brass-colored beard swaying gently in a soft breeze he could barely feel through the thick layer of grime that covered his skin. With each step, he marveled at how far he'd fallen. And now, how it is today, with the changes that I've made. The stench was fetid, pungent, even repugnant. Every manner of foul one could imagine. It was to Damien Flynn's great dismay that it was from his very person the scent emanated. You see, he was dead. Or, at least, he was about to be. He looked down at the shackles around his thin wrists and dirty ankles and supposed this was the price you paid for finding your spine so late in life. He was part of a parade of the wasted and forgotten, trudging through the middle of Eastport. They meandered down cobbled streets he knew well toward the outskirts of the city where he, and all of them, would meet their untimely end. Damien's unkempt brass-colored beard, longer than he'd ever had it by choice, swayed gently in a soft breeze he could barely feel through the thick layer of grime covering his skin. It was a marvel how far he'd fallen. Not but a few years ago, he'd have been the one signing the final warrants for the people he now shared this inauspicious queue with. And one thing here, just to make it so that you don't start freaking out if you're in the middle of your writing process, what I want to leave you with, you don't have to get it right immediately. I used my example because I wanted to kind of show you that, well, one, I got to that first setting, that first hook for the book back in 2018 by kind of like, that was like the first couple lines I wrote in the book, and then I went through and rewrote everything. The book that the hook that I use now, that is based off of already having gone through it, having written a second book since then, having written a third book since then, and then coming back and trying to fix it. I'm not saying do what I do, that's a wrong way to do it, I think. Anytime you try and go back and edit shit like I'm doing, it's not really a great idea. Just even for your mental health, it's probably really bad for mine. But the point is, you can go back and fix it or change it after you have written your first draft, your second draft, third draft, fourth draft. Because remember, every first draft is absolute shit, and that's okay. Take your time with it, get some shit down. Once you're done with the book, go back to that hook, because it's an important part of the writing process. Read just the hook to people, to friends, to strangers. See if it works for them. Are they intrigued or are they interested? Try and find people that are going to be brutally honest with you. People that are going to tell you, oh no, I'm not that interested in this, or not. I promise you it will help you in the end, because it has helped me in the end. Thank you so much for being here and watching. I hope you found this video helpful, and I will talk to you all again soon.